Tim and Don with NFL talk from across the pond. I'm back when this town needs an enema. There's only one town that we know of at this point in time that really needs one. It's called New York. New York City. The Jets. The Giants. Yikes. I don't know, Dom. I don't know if we start off with the Giants and the Jets, or do we just forget those games ever happened? But the question always is at the beginning of the show, how are you doing today?
Trying to forget that the New York Giants game ever happened. I'm all right. I'm very good, very good. Just finished a school run. An unusual recording time today, so we're all good.
Yeah, we're not used to recording on a Tuesday. We'll get the video up this we'll have the podcast up this afternoon. We also are going to try to do some video. We'll do this video and live in the upcoming future, just not right now, but. Do we start with the Giants, Dom, or do we go somewhere else on the schedule? What do you think?
All right, let's very quickly, 2 minutes, so we can all feel better about ourselves and have a group therapy session, and then should we move on?
Did you? I know it's late your time, but did you see any of the Peyton Manning, Eli Manning highlights of their show they did on NFL? They do the Monday show here, and they kind of watch the game and they kind of go through the game and. Eli Manning was telling a story, and their show is probably not going to be on the air anymore. I'm just joking. But Eli Manning flipped the double bird during the middle of the broadcast because he was telling the story about how a 7-year-old flipped him off in Philadelphia one time when he was playing there. And it's kind of reminded me what I would like to do the Giants, right? What I would really like to do the Giants right now, flip them off, give them the double bird. Because you got beat by the Dirty Birds. You lost 17-14 to a team that if you were saying that you were going to be this franchise that's winning, we're pushing all of our chips into the middle of the table, we're doing all these things. We screwed up the salary cap in 2022, but that does not matter because we are going to make the playoffs and we are 0-3.
Yeah, I saw this. I didn't see the show, but I saw the still of it. I thought he was referring to the number of Super Bowls he won.
How many times he beat Tom Brady?
Yeah, that one's for you. Chris.
That was for you, Mr. Brady.
But yeah, look, it's not good. I thought this was going to be the first win of the season.
So did we.
It wasn't. The Falcons aren't great. We've lost at home. I funny enough, had us winning in New Orleans. I thought with Thomas out and no true home game for New Orleans, but I don't see it now. I'm struggling to see where the next win comes from. And if we're honest with you, with the cap next year. It's 3 weeks in. We shouldn't be saying this, and I may look daft in 14, 15 weeks' time, but I don't think so. I don't see where the next win's coming from, and it's time to start tearing down the house, and we're going to have to go anew. And you're just hoping now that the front office and the coaching team now set things up as best they can for the new guys coming in next year.
Yeah, the only problem is the Giants can't tear anything down. We can't trade anybody. Because we'll take the cap hit next year, and we can't afford the cap hit because we have 33 players and over $200 million in spent cap when the projected cap is going to be $206 million.
That is the issue. And what, 35 players?
35 players. And then the fact is you got a franchise quarterback who, I mean, outside of New York, if you look outside of New York, people don't understand Daniel Jones. They don't understand the love affair because the kid doesn't throw deep. Kurt Warner did a video 2 weeks ago and broke down the Washington game and clearly pointed out that Daniel Jones had one-on-one coverage on both sidelines, multiple plays, and he checked down to the middle of the field. He's got to take a shot. You got to unleash it. You can't blame Jason Garrett for your quarterback playing scared and not wanting to throw the ball deep. And then honestly, the last 2 times he threw the ball deep, there was great adjustments by the receivers to actually make the catches, and he overthrew Darius Slayton. I don't care what people say in the Washington game. He overthrew him. If you watch Darius Slayton, he had to accelerate on the 3-yard line to try to get under the ball because he zipped it instead of lofted it.
What I was going to say, I think you'll find when you look statistically, I think you'll find he had the greatest deep ball in the league last year.
Out of 13 throws.
I was going to say from about 3 throws. But yeah, look, I mean, in theory, he has the skill. I don't think the issue is not necessarily whether he can throw well or not. The issue is what's between his ears. He can't read a defense. He can't adjust, and he just throws. You said all the time, he's a first-week quarterback, and it's not good enough.
Yeah.
At this level, that's the big issue for me, rather than whether he can or can't throw a deep ball or what have you. I think the talent's there. I just don't think it's there between the ears on game day. I think you've said it again before. There are great practice warriors that can do it on the training field and then can't do it, and maybe he's one of those. I don't know. I was always better in training than I was on the pitch. Not different game, but same idea.
It's just disgusting to be a Giant fan right now. But I don't want to. I don't want to talk.
It's not a good place to be.
I don't want to talk about the Giants anymore. I want to talk about a game that really kind of piqued my interest, and it was interesting, and it is going to be the Los Angeles Chargers against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chargers took that game 30-24. Windy day at Arrowhead. The Chargers at one point in time could kick the field goal to tie it, and they don't. They go for it. The coach puts his kicking team out, changes his mind because of the weather and the wind, puts the duck back in. What does the duck do? He throws towards the end zone, and I'm going to ask Dom, do you know what happened after what happened when he threw the ball to the end zone? Because it's a great Giant story again.
No, go on. I mean, I saw the throw, but I don't remember what happened afterwards.
Pass interference penalty.
Oh, yes, they ended up having to go 4-9, didn't they? Or instead of 4-3, yeah.
Pass interference.
Yeah, I thought you meant after the...
No. What happened during the play? Pass interference penalty on whom? Any idea? Mr. Nino Brown himself, former Giant, former Florida State resident, 497-623-458, DeAndre Baker.
DeAndre Baker, yeah.
I was like, how fitting is that they decide to go for it? And what do? They get a pass interference penalty on DeAndre Baker, and then the duck comes back and they win the game. They win the game with a touchdown to beat the Chiefs at Arrowhead, 30-24. Man, the duck, 26 for 38, 281, 4 touchdowns. Whoever doesn't think this kid is for real and the Chargers are probably going to make some noise this season, I don't think they understand or they've ever watched football.
I mean, I've said before, when he came out of the draft, I didn't think he was going to be all that, and I was wrong. What I didn't expect, if I'm honest, I thought there would be either a level or a slight regression from last year, and that's not a reflection on.
No, it's usually it's referred to.
He was last year.
It's the sophomore jinx.
Yeah, his numbers, if he matches them this year, I mean, they were super impressive. So, I've always felt that this is 1 year too early for the Chargers, and I still think that. I think they will go to the playoffs, and I don't expect them to not to unless something weird happens. But I don't think them to go deep in the playoffs. What I do think is they are fast approaching a Super Bowl run. I think this year was too early, but a second year from Staley, Herbert will be in a third. They're building that team. I think it's going to be a phenomenal team for the next 3 years. And Staley clearly trusts his players and he makes those bold calls. And look, he's a hero because they came off. If they don't, then less so. But actually, with where they're at, I think he was right to take the bold call, and he comes away with a major win in Arrowhead. And the Chiefs now are 1-2. Who thought that?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think the Chiefs, I think they'll right themselves. I don't think they're not going to right themselves. But like I said, it was just a great road win. And I've said this before a million times.
Road win.
Signature, very good. That's exactly what I was saying. Signature road win. And they stole a game. They stole a home game. That's what I wanted the Giants to do when they played Washington, was steal that home game because I thought they could win it. But Chargers went out, man, and they stole a home game. Go ahead.
What do you think on the Chiefs?
I think the Chiefs will be fine. I just think you got to come down. They're like Tampa. You're going to come down to earth a little bit on some games, and then Mahomes didn't have a horrible game, but it's just you expect more out of Mahomes. You just do, and when he doesn't perform like he normally does, and he did. It's not that he had a bad game. It's just it's not was a Mahomian's game.
His bar is so high, right?
Yeah, exactly. When the bar's set at 10 and you play at 11, when you fall down to 9.5, that's a serendipitous drop.
Exactly. I mean,
look at me breaking out the college words.
I know. Look at you with your thesaurus. I don't know why I said thesaurus.
I don't know either, but I was going to be like, I'm just going to leave that one alone.
Yeah, but there we go. I'll correct myself. But I mean, I think what they do need to do is they do need to get tired on defense. They can't keep putting them in shootouts every week, but I think it will come. I'm not necessarily concerned. And I think his O-line I don't. It is quite good, and I think that will just get stronger as they gel over the season. There's no concerns about them. I laughed the other day. The reason I ask is because I heard someone say, "Oh, the Chiefs 1-2. There's no way they're going to the playoffs." So like, the only way they're not going to the playoffs is if they're about 8 or 9 of their players all get injured for the rest of the season, and they're all like Mahomes and Kelsey and.
Well, I laugh because if they're not going to the playoffs, then the Giants are definitely not going to the playoffs.
Well, quite. But yeah, I mean, I do think they need to sort out their defense. He can't keep putting up. I mean, he can keep putting up 30, 40 points a week, funny enough. But, he can't keep being into shootouts if they want to go to the Super Bowl, because once you start going into the postseason games, you're going to have to get tighter. And
they'll figure it out.
Super Bowl run where he won every game from behind.
Yeah, it was. They'll figure it out. I'm not concerned about the Chiefs, but I want to talk about a team that I love, you hate, and you're wrong again. 31-19 Arizona Cardinals over the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars at one point, with 4 minutes into the third quarter, were leading this game 19-10. And what does Kyler Murray do? Puts the team on his back, scores 24 unanswered points, and they win the game 31-19. I mean, 20. What was it? 38. 28 out of 34, 316 yards. He did have an interception. He scored a touchdown. He ran a touchdown in. But if you don't love, I mean, like I said, if you don't love these Cardinals, I mean, I know you're not a Cliff Kingsbury fan. Neither am I really. But this Cardinal team, to me, is for real. I mean, they play a team they should blow out. They play like dog doo-doo, but they have this thing, and it's a thing that you always hope the Giants would have had, that they flip the switch. And what do? They drop 24 in 19 minutes over the Jaguars to take the game back under control and just move forward. And like I said, if you look at it, AJ Green had 5 catches for 112. Kirk had 7 catches for 104. I mean, they're loaded on offense. I think their biggest thing is they're going to need to stay healthy.
I agree. And look, their defense is, but they got pass rusher as well. Let's not forget, we saw that week 1.
Oh, yeah.
Look, they are a good side. My issue with them is no. Let's start with the positives. The positives are Kyler Murray, good offense, good defense. Right, they are a good team. Kyler Murray, you're going to get interceptions with him, but not masses. He's not Jameis Winston, because he's that type of player that's going to take chances, and he's dynamic. I do worry a little bit about the balance. I don't know what their rushing yards were this week, but they were also playing Jacksonville.
They have James Conner, who was with the Steelers. He had 43 yards. Chase Edmonds had 26. Kyler Murray had 19. I don't worry about the rushing one because of the fact, look at Baltimore.
Okay, but I still think that I prefer teams with a balanced offense to one that doesn't have a balanced offense, and I think Baltimore will throw the ball slightly more this year. I think that's just my view. I haven't got the stats to hand, but I'd be surprised if their throwing yards aren't up this year, or at least they should be with what they did with their receiving core this year. But look, they are a really good side. The reason I have concerns about them is not the playing personnel. It's not even the coach, although I'm not the greatest Cliff Kingsbury fan. I think the issue is the expectations are they need to go postseason, and they need to win at least a game in the postseason if Kingsbury is to keep his job there, which is why I think he's on the hot seat, and he is in the toughest division in football. That said, they are 3-0. They are beating teams out of division, and they are going to need to, because they're going to knock lumps out of each other in that division. And if you take someone like Seattle, who have now, lost 2, I think it is now, he says without checking.
They did lose Seattle.
That is an issue, because now you're having to play catch up with everyone else. But there is still the 49ers, who lost a close game to Green Bay, and the Rams. And you're going to have to come past at least one of them. Possibly all 3 go out of the division, but I just don't necessarily think so. So I think that's a concern. And what happens if they lose 1 or 2 and the pressure starts to build? That could go either way. They either 5 off it or they don't. And that's why, for me, the jury's still out on the Cardinals. But they are a good team, no question. But that's why Kingsbury's under pressure for me.
Okay, that makes sense. I agree. I don't. Like I said, I think that Kingsbury. I don't know. I'm not a Kingsbury fan at all, to be honest.
I like his front room. It's very nice.
What's that?
I like his front room. It's very nice.
It's very nice. It's
one of the abiding memories I have of the not this draft, but the draft before.
I would say I think it was 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a Kingsbury fan, and I wasn't a Kingsbury fan with him at Texas Tech. He didn't really show much at Texas Tech either. But you know, he had the connection with Kyler Murray, which is kind of, I think, some of the reasons why they decided to go with him. But
just really quickly while we're on that game, and sorry, I just want to touch on one more thing, but finish your point first. But before we move on to someone else.
No, I was just saying I was just never a big fan of Kingsbury, and like I said, I think in some ways they might win in spite of him because of the talent that they do have.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, they need to keep that on defense. They need to keep those two sort of veteran edges fit, which may or may not happen. But I mean, I know you were watching the game. What did you make of Trevor Lawrence? He seemed to be, from what I saw, and it was little highlights, seemed to be better. And you're expecting the rookie stuff, which you're still seeing. But,
he
I mean,
was
no one's concerned about him, right? I mean, they shouldn't be.
No, he was 22 of 34, 219, a touchdown and 2 interceptions. He had moments where he looked good, and he had moments where he looked like a rookie, and that's what's going to happen when you don't run the ball like I think that they should. They only ran the ball, I think, 26 times, I think, which isn't bad. But when you got a rookie quarterback and you're still throwing more than you're running, you're asking for trouble. And that's exactly what happened.
Not helped by their injury to the rookie running back either, to be fair. But
right, well, they still have the kid from last year who rushed for over 1,000 yards, James Robinson.
Exactly. Exactly.
So and they have Carlos Hyde, you know, who is a veteran running back.
They're not short of runners.
No, they're not short. They're not short of runners. It's just I don't like the way Urban Meyer is directing this offense.
No, and I think the other thing as well is you have to remember that Jacksonville they're going to go in the right direction, but they're still not a great side at this moment, and that never helps. Right? You know, we said beforehand about Jones going into New England. He's got a chance because he's going into a good side. Whereas Wilson and Lawrence have it all to do because they're going into two bad sides. Right,
exactly. I mean, it's I just don't understand what they're doing. I mean, I don't get what Urban Meyer is doing. I know he's a genius and all, but it's I don't know. Let's get off that game because that was, you know, that's just a great team against a bad team. I want to talk about an interdivisional game for the Giants. And that game is going to be the Bills against the Washington football team. The Bills take this game 43-21. To me, the Washington, I keep about to say the name, the Washington football team had high expectations. They you know, were like the Giants. They do have a win, but you get shellacked.
So not like the Giants then.
That's true. They're not like the Giants. But then you go out and get shellacked by the Bills 43-21. Tyler Heineke fell down to earth a little bit, 14-24, 212, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I mean, to me, it looks like the East is going to stink again. And I mean, Josh Allen got himself right with 32 out of 43 for 358 and 4 touchdowns. Even Mitchell Trubisky got in the game and threw a pass and completed. I mean, the Bills got themselves right, and I think Washington is just showing what Washington is. I mean, I think they had a high expectations of Washington, like the Giants did, and I think the whole thing just kind of crapped out.
Yeah, look, I mean, really quickly on the Bills, they're back after their week 1 troubles. I don't think anyone should be shocked by that. And I think, you know, AFC East, it's all about second place. We said that before the season, and it's definitely going to be the case now. I know they're only 1 game ahead of the other 2, but they looked really good against, you know, let's be honest, coming into the season, a Washington defense that everyone fancied and was number 2, I think, overall defense last year. But there are concerns in Washington. There has to be. You know, Tyler Heineke did exactly what you said he'd do. You know. And they were always reliant on Fitzpatrick playing well and being fit, and he's not. I thought they'd take the division. I don't think they're going to now. Again, it's too early, but you know, it's still a bad enough division that they could, but they've got to start playing better, and that defense is going to have to start winning the games. And they conceded 29 points last week to the Giants. just let that sink in. 29 points to the Giants last week, and they conceded over 40 this week. That has got to be a concern for what was supposed to be the side of the ball where they won games. That has to get back to somewhere near where they were last season if they're to take the division. I know you can't necessarily write them off at this point, but it's starting to look a little bit worrying for them. And the Bills are a good side. Like, losing this game is not a shock.
Right.
It's the manner in which they lost the game that has to be worrying. And you expect that defense to get better and be back nearer where it was last year, but that's a heck of a long way back at this moment.
Right.
The betting odds in the States had the Cowboys taking the division. And I remember thinking, no chance. But it looks like they know more than me again. So, there we go. But I don't know what you think's going on with that Washington defense, but it doesn't look like it did last year. Not even close.
I think it's the front five who was billed as the greatest thing since sliced bread with all the number one draft choices on that line. They're just not creating the rush that they need to create to take the onus off the secondary. And I think, I don't want to break it down as it being simplistic, but I think that is probably the most simplistic way to look at it. I mean, if you don't pressure the quarterback and you don't get to him, they had 0 sacks.
I was going to say no sacks, and I'm not going to break down film and what have you, because I don't have the ability to do that. But from what I saw of the game, and again, you have to be, when you're watching highlights, you have to be aware you are watching highlights, not the whole game. You're exactly right. I couldn't see where they were putting pressure on Allen, and putting pressure on Allen, then hey, he can play when he's got pressure, let alone when he hasn't.
Right. If you're looking for the highlights, they're not going to see it daily. And like I said, there was no pressure.
No, exactly, literally none. But you were listening to the commentary on top of the highlights, and you could just tell that was exactly what happened all day long.
Right.
And if you're not going to put, like I said, if you're not going to put pressure on Allen, he's going to do that to you.
Oh, exactly.
He can do it when he's got pressure on, let alone when he hasn't.
I would say when he doesn't have the pressure on him, he's going to move. He's going to move forward. I mean, he that's just the type of quarterback he is. But let's get into another interesting game. That's the Saints and the Pats. It's 28-13 Saints. I mean, Jameis Winston threw up a stinker the week prior. Doesn't really throw the ball much. They go more to the ground with Alvin Kamara, 13-21, 128, 2 touchdowns. Kamara, 24 rushes for 89 yards. And even Taysom Hill got into it with 6 rushes for 32 yards. They made Mac Jones look like a rookie quarterback, plain and simple. They did everything they could to confuse him on that defense. Mac was 30 of 51 for 270, 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions. It's a game that you're probably going to see from a lot of rookie quarterbacks. But like I said, I've said this before, and it's sad to say, but the Saints are going to go with the way Jameis Winston takes them. They're going to have to deal with either his 7 touchdowns in one game or his 2 touchdowns and 6 interceptions.
Yeah. I mean, I said it after the week one was let's see what happens, but the hope for the Saints is that he's learned from Breeze and learns to sort of control that urge to throw the ball when he doesn't need to. But the reality and the good news for them is, it's not like they've got a poor running back behind, for him to hand the ball off to in Kamara, right? I mean, he's a good running back. They've got a sort of balanced attack, but I don't see them going playoffs. I've said I think they're a 500 team, probably the right side of 500, right. But in and around that mark. But yeah, that defense caused all sorts of issues for Mac Jones. Again, not a surprise from a rookie. I think people, I said it, he was the most pro-ready, as it were, ready to come in. But you're still a rookie, and it's still a step up, but we saw that. And, I wouldn't be worried too much if I was New England still at this point. They lost to a good side, but they're in a similar boat. They're only going to go as far as Mac Jones can take that offense, and it's the same with New Orleans. Although with Kamara running back to a slightly less extent, and that's not to say that New England don't have a rushing game. They do. They have a running game, but it's not a surprise. Basically, is what I'm saying, that Jones is going to struggle from some games. Talking earlier about Trevor Lawrence, right? He's a much better quarterback than Mac Jones. I mean, if anyone thinks different, then I think they want their head read. But he's going to have inconsistency. Same with Mac Jones.
Right.
But a really good win for New Orleans again.
No, like I said, but I think they're like, like we've said it before, they're gonna live and die with him, and I think I don't want to say they're gonna die more, but I think they're gonna, I think they just need to, kind of figure out what they have, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, exactly. And like I say, I think if he's having a poor game, at least they've got Kamara to turn to with the running game, and that might just allow Winston then, when they start stacking the box, to stop Kamara, to then air it out a little bit, which he's definitely capable of doing. So I'm not concerned about them. I don't see them as a deep playoff team by any stretch, but I'm not concerned. They're not going to be a top 10 picking team next year, not unless something horrific happens.
Now, speaking about other rookie quarterbacks, Jets and the Broncos. Jets 0, Broncos 26. I think the Jets have scored something ridiculous, like they're averaging like 6 points a game right now through 3 games. It's the fact that another rookie looked like a rookie. I mean, I don't know how else to say that. Teddy Bridgewater didn't have to do much. The Denver didn't really have to do anything at all against Zach Wilson. I mean, it was just a bad look for another New York team, and now you have the Denver Broncos at 3-0.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really pay the Broncos much attention preseason.
I don't think anybody did.
Quarterback battle. No, I heard a couple of people saying them as a sleeper team. To be fair, but I was like, I don't really see that, but I wasn't really paying enough attention to them to sort of, categorically say, well, that's a load of rubbish, because they were just a sort of a nothing team to me. I was most intrigued with what they did at quarterback between Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, another good win. Teddy does what Teddy does. I'm just looking at the stats now for him. Mistake-free again, 235 yards, no turnovers, 12 of 19, I think he was. And they give him good pass protection to be fair, but he game manages, and that's what he does, and he did it really well. As for Wilson, I think it's not, you can't write him off after 3 games or anything.
No, I'm not writing him off.
I'm concerned about decision making. But that said, he's got some injury. Becton is a big miss on that line. That left side of the line is with Becton there is fairly stout. The right side, not quite so. But my concern remains with him is his decision making, and like I say, plenty of time to correct it. But we're starting to see that on evidence on show now. A lot of interceptions, with 3 again this week, and he's just got to get that ball out quicker for me. But I think the Jets would be absolutely mental, even though they're not putting the points now to bench him. I think that could do inevitable damage to his confidence and his future. They just need to ride with him and see where they end up. And with the injuries they've got this season, I think there were legitimate excuses, especially with a new rookie quarterback as well, for them to really struggle in what is, in theory, quite a competitive division.
Right, exactly. And I'm not saying to bench him. I mean, because he's going to have. No, I know you're not. He's going to have his rookie growing pains. I mean, that's just what it's going to be. He's going to have these growing pains. He's going to have these issues. It is what it is. I mean. But I just think it's interesting that that they're not scoring any points. And Sam Darnold, who we're going to get to in a second, was the poster boy for the Jets' failures. And now that he's gone, it looks like maybe it wasn't Sam Darnold, because Sam Darnold, is performing in Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's got a better roster around him, to be fair, and I think he's got a better coach. I mean, that's not difficult, because it was Adam Gase last year. But yeah, I methink, like I said, I think, just very quickly on the Jets before we go back there, I think they are going in the right direction under their new GM. But I do think I said it last week, I think it was a mistake. I would have traded the second pick and put more pieces around Sam Darnold and see what you got, because I think he showed enough to say that he could have a future there. But that's why it's gone. And Carolina are now
3-0.
Big reward to that. He's playing very well. I really like them. I think they're a balanced offense. I think the defense is better than I thought it would be. And he's racking up the wins. I do think we have to remember that they haven't had necessarily the toughest of starts, but they are 3-0. And if they go 500 for their remaining games, that'll be for playoffs, and that's where I thought they would be. I thought they'd sneak in as a wild card, and I'm really impressed. And the other thing I was going to say is I really like their head coach. I wanted him to be the Giants head coach 2 years back when we were hiring. Well, not 2 years yet, but hey, we'll be back in that cycle shortly, I'm sure. I just think they're a really nice team. Last year they were desperately dull, but I don't think they are this year, and they're 3-0 and deserve to be.
Yeah, well, and we're not even going to touch a lot on that game because I think you pretty much summed up that game. I mean, because they're 3-0, they got what their winning rule. You beat the Texans. So the Texans are the Texans. I mean, we thought the Texans would probably be 0-3, they're 1-2. But at the Panthers, you can only play the people that are on your schedule. You can only beat the teams that are on your schedule, and that's what they did to the Texans, and like I said,
I had to get one pick right as well. So at least they're coming good for me.
at least they're working out for you. One game I also want to jump into, of course, is the Bengals and the Steelers. And I like this game because Big Ben had a bad game, and you've been waiting for him to implode a little bit. The Bengals took this game 24-10 against the Steel Curtain. It was not a great. I watched some of this game. It was not a great game to watch. Burrows was only 14 of 18 for 172, 3 touchdowns and an interception. I think it was the kind of them exposing Big Ben, who was 38 of 58 for 318, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions, and exposing Najee Harris. I can never say that name. In reference to his rushing, he was 14 for 40 for 2.9. I think they exposed the offense a little bit for the Steelers. And I think, like I said, it was a good win for Joe Burrows and the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of this game because it sounded desperately dull.
It was not a great game to watch.
But when you look at the stats, you think the Bengals have got their quarterback, no question. I say that. Let me just quickly caveat that they have their quarterback if they can keep him alive for another season until they go and draft some offensive linemen.
Yes, yes, that's a good way to put it.
But this is a game. If you're the Steelers and you think you're still there and you still think you make the right decision in that front office of riding with Big Ben for one more year and going to the playoffs, this is the type of game you need to win. And it's a type of game, I have been waiting for them to lose because I always thought not necessarily this one, I just don't think that offense can do it. They're not getting the running game. They're not taking the pressure off Big Ben. And he is old, and he looks old at the moment. And you look at the first half of last season, they were great. And then he tailed off. But that's been the history of Big Ben recently. He tails off in the second half as he starts to really feel the physical pressures of being a 38-year-old quarterback that doesn't train like Tom Brady does, or even Aaron Rodgers, who I know had most of the offseason off. But let's be honest, he was almost certainly keeping himself fit. Big Ben historically doesn't do that. And that was where my concern came. They need to start establishing a ground game. Like Najee Harris, as you say, 40 yards, but 20 of them came in one play.
One play, yeah, and I was going to get to that, but to the point, you need to establish something. You can't rely on your 497-year-old quarterback,
and it's going to put extra pressure on the defense if you're not moving those chains and you're not moving that forward. And this is a game you have to be doing it, and they didn't. And I think they will not do it again and again until they can establish a ground game.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. I mean, it's if they cannot establish some semblance of a ground game, I mean, any semblance of a ground game, I mean, it's just going to be horrid for this team. I mean, it's going to be horrid for the Steelers. They're going to have a bad season going through for that they haven't had probably in quite a while.
Yeah, and you go back to the Cardinals quickly. So their running backs didn't exactly put up impressive numbers, but Murray's topping that up. Ben Roethlisberger is not going to top that up.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it. He's not going to sit there and he's not going to add to those yardage. If anything, he is going to be more detrimental to that yardage than anything else.
Exactly. So all you need to do is go and have enough in the box to stop Harris, but not overload it, and wait for Ben Roethlisberger to throw it. Whereas you do that against a Cardinal, Kyler Murray's just going to set off.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that in the grand scheme of things is the problem that the Steelers are going to have. I thought when they drafted Harris, I thought they were going to draft a solution to that problem. And honestly, I don't see a venerable solution to that issue. I mean,
no, and they lost a lot on that O-line, of course, in the offseason as well. That's not going to help. But they were a team that just needed to start going, do you know what? we don't need to tear it all up. We still got some good pieces here, but we need to now start freshening it up, and they haven't. And now they are going to have to go and do more than they probably should have had to have done because they've gone on too long.
Right. I agree. I agree 100% with that. I mean, I think, like I said, I'm a little, like I said, I was higher on the Steelers than you were. I'm still, if they could, I think if they can figure out the running game, I think that's what's going to drive them. But like I said, now, I just don't.
It wouldn't shock me if they were in and around 500 at the end of the season, but they need to find those solutions or they won't be. But hey, if there's a coach that's going to do it, then they've got one of the ones that I would trust to find a solution.
Well, let's jump into another 3-0 team though. The Raiders. The Raiders took out the Dolphins 31-28. I didn't think this score was going to even be this close. But the Raiders pull it out at the end. Jacoby Brissett, of course, was filling in for the injured Tua. You know, he's 32-49, 215, no touchdowns. It was a game I really didn't think that the Dolphins were going to be in. But Derek Carr and the Raiders, they pulled it out with Peyton Barber rushing for 111. You had Derek Carr throwing for 386, 2 touchdowns, and interception. It's a good win for Chucky, for old John Gruden there. I mean, it's another team that I like, but I honestly didn't think they were going to go 3-0.
I mean, I don't think anyone did, right? I mean, you know, even the most optimistic Raiders fan must have been looking at this and going, we're not going 3-0 here. You know, but fair play. Look, they're 3-0. They're doing really well. Let's see if they can do it over 17 games, right? Gruden historically does struggle second half, but at the moment, Derek Carr is this team, but he's got some nice pieces around him and he's finding them. And that line, that O-line, again, I haven't seen the world supply of Raiders. Seems to be doing a bit better than I thought it would, because I didn't think they really had a plan on that line. They sort of ripped it up a little bit, and I didn't see where they were replacing it, but he seems to be holding up quite well. And Carr is looking, I mean, I'm not, when I say special, which is the word I'm going to use, I don't mean, you know, elite, you know, best quarterback in the league stuff, but he is playing really, really, you know, he's on a hot streak at the moment, and he's a good quarterback. You know, and he's leading that team really, really well, and they deserve to be 3-0, to be fair. And you know, that again, I said it earlier about the Panthers. Go 500 for the rest of it in this playoffs.
Yep, and you're gonna roll through that way.
What do you think on the Finns though? Because you know, I said at the start, I thought the AFC East would be a really interesting one where, you know, Pats and Finns would be around 10 wins, which I'm not saying they won't be, but they both started quite slowly. Those two teams.
I think the Finns will correct themselves. I think it's really going to depend on their quarterback play. And I don't know if Jacoby Brissett's the answer. I don't know if Tua is the answer. But if they don't get I think they have enough on defense, and I think they have enough skill position players to move forward. But if you can't get them the ball, that's going to be kind of a difficult proposition.
Yeah, I was pleased for Jacoby Brissett that although he got no touchdowns, at least he moved the ball a little bit.
He moved the ball. He's put up 28, and they didn't turn it over. So I mean, that's
exactly. After last week's struggles, I was really pleased that he because he's a quarterback I like. I don't ever think I wouldn't want him running my offense, to be fair, in my team. But I like him. I think he's a player that maximizes his ability. His ceiling just isn't that high. But I like that because I like players that perform at their best. Whether that's good enough or not is kind of irrelevant. When you see players giving their all, I think you can't help but sort of cheer for them, in my view. And so I was pleased that he got some points up this week.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he's a good guy, but I don't want him as my starting quarterback.
No, absolutely not. But he's not the starting quarterback in Miami either, to be fair.
Well, right now he is until Tua comes back from the cracked ribs.
Yeah, to the Newcastle Wentz.
Yeah,
which is harsh, by the way, because he wasn't injured last year. He was significant injuries in college.
That's true.
Yeah, but I'm not sure Miami trust their quarterbacks, either of them, right now.
No, I wouldn't either. I wouldn't either. Now, I want to get to one other 3-0 team. That's the Los Angeles Rams, who took out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 34-24. Good game. Interesting, fun game to watch. Tom Brady was pissed. And I'd be pissed too if I was 41-55 for 430.
Angry or the boats type pissed?
The both. I mean, he threw 41-55, 432 yards. They basically only ran the ball, I think, 13 times the entire game, and 3 of those rushes were Tom Brady. And they get shellacked by Mr. Bradford. Not Mr. Bradford. Why do I keep saying Mr. Bradford?
You always, yes.
Because I always think of him because of Mr. Stadford, who also threw 4 touchdowns, 343 yards. They actually even ran the ball with what's his name, Sony Michel, the former.
Michel, yeah. No touchdowns for him.
No touchdowns, but he did run the ball. He didn't run the ball well, but they run the ball 20 times for 67 yards. You know what? I think they kind of formulated a plan for beating Tampa Bay. You know, put it into Tom's Brady hands, make them throw the ball, control the clock, and score more points. I think scoring more points is for any team, but but I think that's kind of the way to tackle the Bucs.
You know what? It reminds me of my old. We're talking European football quickly here, but it reminds me of our manager. Sunday morning, he goes. Prep talk was always before the game. Right, boys. Here's the game plan. Let's go and score more goals than them, and then we'll win.
Right. Exactly.
To which you want to say, no shit, Sherlock. But it always used to make me laugh, you know, go out there with a smile on your face. Because you knew it was going to say it every week, and it still made me smile every week. But, but yeah, look, they played. But it was a great game, you know, and I thought both teams played well. But I actually think that, you know, you look at those stats for Michel, by the way, and they don't look great. But actually, he ran the ball and got the yardage he needed to get,
right,
and keep that Bucs defence honest, which allowed. I nearly called him Sam Bradford myself then. Matt Stafford, the ability.
It's contagious.
It's catching.
It's contagious.
I'm going to have to look up a medical dictionary after this and see if there's a Bradford illness or something in there. Someone might be able to email you in and tell you, but yeah, look. But how good were the Rams, by the way, on third? Like they got over on third more often than not. Something like 75-80% of their third and whatevers they succeeded and kept going forward. And they were disciplined. Was it one penalty? I think they've given up 7 penalties so far this season, and that's it.
Right, exactly. I mean,
that's the way to win games, and they look good. My only concern with the Rams, and look, they're probably going to take that division or go deep in the playoffs. But my concern with them is they are reliant, and look, lots of teams are, on 4 or 5 absolute star players. And if they lose 1 or 2 of them, now most teams will struggle in that situation, but they do seem one of those teams that are really reliant on them. But at the moment, they're all healthy and they're all playing really, really well. And Matt Stafford has surpassed what I thought he would be in LA.
No, I agree 100%. I'm actually like I said, I'm a little shocked. I'm a little shocked, but you know what? Because I thought they had a good direction when they picked him up. And again, like I said, it's not early, but it's early enough that you're saying, well, you're 0-3. I mean, you're 3-0. I mean, it's you could be generating something here for the future. And yeah, with all the time he spent with the Lions, I mean, it's nice to. It's nice to see him come forward with a win. We're running over once again, so I want to wrap up 2 more games. We got the Seahawks and the Vikings. Seahawks lost to Minnesota 30-17. Russell Wilson looked awesome in the first half of this game, in the first part of this game, but then kind of fell off the planet. And Kirk Cousins, man, he gets so much crap, Kirk Cousins, but all he does when he's getting the opportunity, he's accurate. He can move the team. He was 30 of 38 for 323 yards, 3 touchdowns. They ran the ball. They were out with
didn't have Dalvin Cook either.
Dalvin Cook and this guy Alexander Mattison, 26 carries for 112 yards, 4.3 yards a carry. I mean, it's a win that Minnesota needed. It's a win that I don't think anyone thought they were going to get, even at home. But no. I think they kind of exposed the Seahawks a little bit, and kind of, in some ways, Minnesota saved their own season.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think they did save their own season. I just still don't think their season is going to be overly special. But, that second half in particular was a blueprint for how to beat Seattle. And I think we both said it sort of in the preview show or after week 1 maybe, that Seattle, it just felt for a while like it's going to not tumbling down. I mean, they're coming from a relatively high base, but that again, a team that's sort of needing to get towards freshening up, not at the quarterback position like the Steelers, for instance, but, Russell Wilson is still one of, if not the best quarterback in the league. But that was a blueprint, and they couldn't move that ball in the second half. Wilson could not get that ball going in the second half.
No, not at all.
And absolute credit to Minnesota. Their defense was tip-top, and, with a back up running back, they moved the ball, and Cousins had one of those games which he's capable of, where he just looks like he could do anything in the game. The problem is I don't think he does it consistently enough. I agree with you. He gets an overly unfair rap, but I also think there are.
I think it's a bad rap.
That criticism, because he doesn't do it consistently. He almost, not saying he's the same style quarterback as Jameis Winston, but similar sort of one where you don't quite know what's going to come week after week. But I think he's more consistent than a Jameis Winston, and he gets a sort of Jameis Winston label in a different way for me.
Right.
I'm not, like I say, it's an unfair comparison in terms of the styles or anything like that, but same sort of criticisms, if that makes sense.
No, I agree.
Think of a better one.
I agree. I agree. We also had the late game, which was the Packers against the 49ers. Packers took this game 30-28 on a good drive at the end of the game by Mr. Discount Double Check to take this game over and win this game for his team in San Francisco. I mean, I'm not very high on San Francisco because I think their defense is old and I are older, and I'm not a big Garoppolo fan. But like I said, this was another good. I think this was a very good win for a Green Bay team who needed, I think, a road win like this to kind of put to side and put to rest all the bull crap that they had gone through. With the Rodgers in the offseason and everything else. I mean, it's like I said, I think San Francisco is going to be a good team, not a great team, but to me, it's still a good win for the Packers to take this game on the road 30-28 and win it at the last second fashion by Crosby kicking the field goal.
I change the narrative in Green Bay, right?
Yes, and it's getting people off topic.
Yeah, and onto something else.
Yes.
And Also, that must have been particularly galling for the 49ers. It was Aaron Rodgers that came and did that to them after they made that late play for him as well.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And by all accounts, that's where he wanted to be as well.
I think you're right. Yeah. I don't think you're wrong.
There might have been a little bit of the Eli Manning telling a story with his fingers element to it from Aaron. We know how good he is when he's got a chip on his shoulder. But look, this is a win with ramifications, right? Green Bay should take their division. Nobody in their right mind thought after the first week that Green Bay were going to completely implode this week. They just had a bad start of the season, week one syndrome, as I like to call it. But this is one that does have ramifications, and could make me very wrong on Arizona because you need to be winning these games out of division.
Yep, and you need to win these games at home
against a very good side, admittedly. Yep. But you're exactly right. It's a signature win for Green Bay, and it's a signature loss in many ways for the 49ers. Although I actually thought Jimmy G played quite well, probably played well enough to win, but Aaron Rodgers was at 37 seconds to go down the field. He was impressed. And look, don't get me wrong, you shouldn't be surprised he can do it. He's a very, very good quarterback and has proved it time after time after time. But a really good win for them. But do you know what impressed me most about it?
Right.
And it was Aaron Rodgers when he absolutely went for his center after he snapped the ball quite poorly and it could have cost them. And he just absolutely, not toys out the pram, but that wasn't good enough. We've got to win these games and that wasn't good enough. You need to focus rather than, Golladay shouting at Garrett or Jones last week when I'm going to have a tantrum over it. It was very much, we need to be better. Almost Tom Brady-esque in terms of that's not the right standard. You need to get there. And I think that was probably, not that specific moment, but that attitude is what got the Green Bay to win over the 49ers in what was a really good game to watch, by the way. I watched a lot of that game. I managed to find a lot of that game to watch, and it was too late for me to watch live. And I had time because I'm on leave from work this week, but so I got lots more time. But I was really impressed with Green Bay. I thought they played really well. In fact, I was impressed with both teams. I think they're both postseason teams, and a fun game to watch.
It was a good game to watch.
Draft, baby. Yeah.
We know what that means. We know we're going to wrap up today's show because we're running a little bit longer again. It's going to be Dom's final thoughts. And Dom made a comment earlier today earlier during the broadcast or before the broadcast that I usually take his topic. So hopefully I did not pilfer any of the things that you wanted to discuss about in Dom's final thoughts.
Draft, baby. Yeah.
Do you know what? My mate Luke listened to this last week, and he's going to take the mickey out of me properly when I go to the pub with him later over that button. But what was I going to say? Yeah, look, I jotted down very quickly because we don't overly prepare. I quickly jotted down the results. so that I could remember what the scores were, and 4 quick final thoughts. So, but you nicked one of them, and I didn't think you'd cover the Panthers because it was A, the early game, and B, it was one of the only things I've called right so far. But we'll see where we are at the end of the season. But 2 very quick things before I actually make my final thoughts. One, really pleased to see Andy Reid on his way out of hospital. I think he's out of the hospital.
He's out of the hospital.
And potentially back on the field, on the sidelines next week. I think that's really good news. And secondly, some more good news, I think, for New Orleans, that they've been cleared to go back. I think, again, for them.
And there was actually just a fire 2 weeks ago in the dome. I don't know what happened there, but there was a fire there too.
Well, so, yeah, I mean, that's not good news, but there'll be plenty of firings going on soon for their visiting team next week.
Yes, yes, they will be. Happens
to be the New York Giants, but no, some really good news and something that City will need after the storms earlier this year. But what I wanted to ask you about is a bit of a preview to next week, and we'll cover it after the game. Is Tom Brady obviously back in New England next week? I mean, not necessarily a preview of the game, but probably Tampa Bay will want to recover from their loss this week, and the Pats will not want to go 1-3. But an intriguing matchup. On paper, definitely the Bucs are the better side here. But how do you think that? I mean, there's going to be a media circus around that. But what are your thoughts on that game, and in terms of how you think? I mean, Bill Belichick will presumably say after the game it was on Cincinnati or something like that. But how do you think him and Tom Brady are going to cope with that? And what do you think the reception is going to be like for Tom Brady?
I think they'll cope with it fine together because they're both professionals, and Belichick is the Belichick. I think Tom Brady's going to have more of a chip on his shoulder than anything else, and I think he's the one that's going to want to stick it to New England and Belichick directly. He's not going to come out and say it, but his competitive nature, I have a feeling he's going to be the one that's going to want to ram this down the Patriots and Belichick's throat. I think his reception is going to be fine because you got a quarterback that won you six. Sorry, I keep forgetting that one. 6 Super Bowls. Yeah,
he could have had 8, but they came up against a better team twice on the day.
Yeah, just wish we were that now. But I think he's going to be fine. I think the reception is going to be fine. But I think he's the one that's going to play with a huge chip on his shoulder and really want to just kind of beat the living snot out of New England,
especially having lost this week. I think. Yeah, I think that's going to be a fun one. It's going to be an interesting one to watch them in the build-up. But I think you're right. The professionalism of both will be out. But I think both will be even more determined than always. And it's going to be a real fascinating game to watch that next week. I'm looking forward to that one.
I think. What was your other points?
I covered them.
No, that was it.
New Orleans Saints, wishing them both well with their you covered the Panthers to give me my moment in the sun.
I have to say something. I'm actually kind of disappointed, and that's what she said. I mean, I was expecting something. I was expecting that. I was expecting an explosion from what the buildup was, and then I kind of get
draft, baby. Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I mean, you sound like my wife, which is a bit disappointing, a bit worrying because she's constantly disappointed in me. But no, look, I think you covered most of the games this week, and I think that's a sort of one thing on my mind going into week 4, because I think after 3 weeks you're getting a feeling for where these teams are, but still too early to categorically sort of sit down and say where they are. And the thing that's most on my mind, I really don't want to talk about because it's not going well.
I agree 100%. I guess so we're going to do some channel news real quick. We are going to try to be going live on YouTube at least once a week with the show, with what we're doing now. We'll broadcast it. We do have the audio posted on YouTube, but we'll put some more emphasis onto the YouTube channel. Because Dom and I are both handsome gentlemen that we should be on YouTube. But I think that'll be fun. I think that'll be interesting. I think that'll help expand the audience. Maybe we get some good questions going on. We did one stream very early, which was one of the very first episodes, but we haven't done it since. So, are you ready, Don, for that?
Yeah, that'd be good fun. I mean, and unfortunately, one of us has a face for radio and a voice for books, but the other one will carry the show, I'm sure.
Well, we all know who that is. We know it's probably the person with a deep baritone voice. And again, this is Tim with Online People. And Dom. See, there we go. And we're going to close it out right there. This is Tim and Dom from NFL Talk from across the pond and back. It was an enjoyable show. It was a fun show. And we will see you next week.